Well, exactly. How did Kaizer Chiefs beat Golden Arrows? It's easy. One team scored and the other didn't. But it's not as simplistic as that now, is it? And we're going to also look at the 5 other things that I noticed from this game that were not necessarily great, but the other 3 things that were good from this game. And I will also want to note this. Chiefs has not won or scored a single goal this season, or had not won or scored a single goal this season until that game against Arrows. And in that game, what happened, it was just one moment where Utuba got the ball, he places it, and then he scores, and then that's it. That's the end of the game. Nothing else happens. We went back to the same way that we played against Milford, the same way we played against Swallows, the same way we played against the other team, Royal AM. So basically, when you come to think about it, the only key moment, which was very important in the context of getting 3 points, was that moment of Duba. And before we even talk about other things, I know some people are already going to say, oh, football fans, why are they never satisfied? It's because if you're going to watch a game that's going to play Boma 97 minutes and there's only one good moment in the entire game where the player scores a goal, then we're not going to sit here and say, oh, everything was good, everything was just rainbows and sunshine, because it wasn't. So let's start with the good things and then we'll talk about the bad things. So obviously the first good thing is the fact that finally Duba got his goal. His first 45 minutes, because he started the game for the first time. He starts the game and he scores a goal. That's a very good thing. He's a boy from development who's proving that last year he should have been trusted more instead of us going out to buy Upimingimana. Even right now, people are complaining about Gonzalez, and you can see that Chiefs has been overlooking our very own players in favor of going to get people that they did not even scout properly. So that's a very good thing, because we have one of our own coming from the development and now doing things in the senior team. Number 2 also is to do to Duba, but now his combination with Upule Modi. There were a lot of times where the ball would move from Modi to Duba, then Duba to Modi. And that was echoed by some of the fans as well, who were talking after the interviews that that combination might just be a very good combination in a long term. And the third one is obviously the fact that Uprosip Vuma once again kept a clean sheet, and people will say, hey, it was a routine match, blah 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 blah. No, he really played well, Uprosip Vuma. And mind you, 7 clean sheets now since he came back. Maybe it's 8. I think it's 7 since he came back. And now that Ukune has been brought back from suspension, I know there's going to be a lot of noise about bring back Kone because Chiefs needs leadership. But guys, how do we justify a keeper who's been playing really well just being dropped because now it's a derby? It doesn't make sense. But I will hear people say that on the comments, to each his own. Now, to the not so great stuff about this game. And the first one is the fact that obviously Udove is injured, Titlok is injured. Ungobo had a solid game, but with glimpses of mistakes. I don't like that, because he's a very good defender. He's very good on the ball, but sometimes he gets too comfortable and he gets caught on the ball. This is not to say he played bad, because I know people get defensive over their favorite players. I love Ungobo, but Unjabulo there is. I love both of them. But his mistakes, this thing of getting too comfortable, if he plays against someone like Saturday, they say Mahopa, watch Ungobo is going to make mistakes. They take the ball from him, they score. All of a sudden, we'll go back to that point again where people will be hating Ungobo. So if somehow, Njabulo Ungobo, you're watching this video, we know you are a very talented footballer and you are in an argument for being a starter at Kaizer Chiefs, please just dial it down on the confidence levels and the need to hold on to a ball a bit longer for one more second and release it early, because if you make a mistake, the fans who are cheering for you when you dribble past a person at times are the ones who are going to turn against you. So I just need him to minimize those mistakes, because otherwise he's a very good asset to the team. Number 2 is the fact that the coach does not just love Ukwinika, but it's like he's obsessed with Ukwinika, because he plays him at right back, which he's not, because he's a center back. But on top of that, when the game started, Ukwinika was strapped, his hamstring is strapped. there's something clearly going on with his hamstring. He plays him continuously. In the game in Milford, Kwinika asked to be taken off because he was struggling. He was taken off. Comes back in that game against Arrows, he's still struggling. Right? To a point that in the second half, it wasn't just that patch to make sure that your hamstring doesn't constrict or something like that. But now it was a bandage. It was a whole bandage. But they did not take him out still. To me, okay, fine. Personally, I would prefer Solomons to play. But Tigek, you are a coach who clearly trusts Kwinika. So logically speaking, if you want Kwinika to play on Saturday, why would you then keep him and risk him getting injured and thus being absent on Saturday? It doesn't make sense. That is why I'm saying it would be one thing to say he favors Kwinika and that would be he selected him. But when he saw that he's injured, then he takes him off because he wants to save him for Saturday. But no, he keeps him even when he sees that he's injured, which just says to me, wow, this must be some next level trust on Kwinika, who's also not very comfortable on the ball, by the way. He's one of the players who can, on a good day, play well enough as a centre back. But at right back, when you have Solomons, especially on the bench, I don't know how that makes sense to anyone who thinks. Number 3 is the fact that the team selection, not just in terms of Kwinika, because we're talking about Kwinika manje, but it's almost like the coach is not sure who he wants to start. Ne? Because last week we do Ranga starting. This week Ranga is not even in the bench. Right? He's not even on the match day squad, and we did not hear anything about injuries. Frosler was playing, and then against Keme Milford, he just got dropped and disappeared. And we thought he was being rested for Ikeme Swallows. He didn't even make the bench even in that game. In the game of Arrows, he didn't even make the bench. We've not been told anything about injury, which leaves us to suspect that he's just being dropped. But at the same time, you go back to the striker situation. In the first game, Ranga, when we played against Royal AM, Ranga wasn't even on the bench. It was Gonzalez was on the bench. But in the second game, when we played against Milford, all of a sudden now it was Ranga, Gonzalez is gone. Game against Swallows is Ranga, now Gonzalez is gone. Now the next game, all of a sudden Ranga has disappeared altogether. And that makes you say, Kante, what's going on here? Do you know what you are trying to do? Because if you have a certain thing that you want to do with certain players, why not keep them and try and see if their situation is working, like for 3-4 games or 5 games even, and then you can make changes. But it seems like the coach is not sure. One thing that the coach seems to be sure about is not selecting Usamgelo Zwane even to be on the bench, because since we came back from the break, he's not been anywhere near that starting 11, no, if not even the bench. So it's clear that with that one, he's just clear Uguti doesn't even want him close to the team. Which brings us to the fourth one, which is the system and how the team is set up. Ne? Because I want to blame the players here as well, because there were times where a player has the ball, there's no one running to support him. And what ends up happening, Pela fans are watching the game, the ball ends up going back because there's no one going forward. And fans get mad. Oh, why are you not going forward? But there's no one forward. You'll find Uguti Umodi has the ball. In front of him, there's only Duba. And now Duba is surrounded by 3 people. Are you telling me, Uguti, you want Modi to try and force a pass to Duba, who's surrounded by 4 people, while the rest of Chiefs are defending? It's not possible. So they end up going backwards. And the backward playing is not because the players are cowards. It's because the system, they themselves also are not making any movements to try and add numbers going forward. It's just pure cowardice, or not pure cowardice, I would say in the setup, because the setup seemingly does not allow players to move forward. All we are trying to do, hence a lot of clean sheets, is make sure that at the back we are solid enough so we don't commit numbers forward. You will have Uhlanti, who does not overlap that much anymore. You have Kwinika, who's naturally a centre back, Umngobo, Nomsimango, defenders. 4 of them are staying back, deeper, usually. You have Umteto sitting deep. You have Castillo sitting, Umart also sitting deep. Nje bonke about 6 bala emumva around the 18, around the center circle, the center line. and then when they break into the final third, there's just 3 people, our forwards, and then the ball ends up going backward, and then you're like, wow, what is this? And it happens so many times because we keep the ball, but where are we keeping it? With the keeper in the middle of the field, and then it goes back. Keeps on happening over and over and over and over again. And if teams are not pressing and opening spaces behind, then we never get any penetration because basically teams know that we don't have any incision, which is exactly why you need players like Abu Mshini. Yesterday he came on and he did the thing. I will talk about Mshini in a moment. Uguti players who can eliminate Abu Mfundo Vilagaz, who can go in there, take the ball and start dribbling past people, and in that way opening spaces. Because if you're not gonna have people flying forward to give you options, then you might as well have someone who's going to dribble past people. The problem is once you depend on someone to start dribbling past people, is that now you are depending on him too much, and other teams see that so you don't also want a system whereby we are just trusting ukuthi Mfundo will dribble past a person or Mshini will dribble past a person. You need a system where each player knows exactly where the teammates are, knows exactly where to pass the ball and where to move in the next phase of play. But in our team, it just seems like we are saying, ish, so kwenza njani ke manje? Ngiphethe ibhola, there's no one who's moving, and then they just get stuck. Speaking of which, obviously, the other thing is a movement, not just a setup, because it's setup here to 18, our setup, because these two are kind of related. The setup of our team, Uguti, are we building from the back? Are we trying to kick the ball forward? What are we doing? That's the setup, and also some movements that are made, because you will see that in some teams like take Real Madrid. Carlo Ancelotti is a very good coach, but it doesn't coach his players as strictly as Guardiola, because Guardiola, there is a pattern of play, there is a sequence. Uguti, the ball moves from here to here. When you must be here, you must be there. That's the setup of the team. And Ancelotti players kind of just do whatever in most cases because they are good enough. But there's also that kind of setup. Uguti, okay, let's not be countered, so we're gonna do this. But you can move wherever you want as long as we are solid in those positions and we are able to stop counters. Ganto City, you cannot just swap at will. Kanti ubuki Madrid uzobona Vinicius engale kwa right umbone kwa left, uyabona nje they can do whatever they want. So with Chiefs, you never really know which thing they are trying to do in a way, because they are just not doing anything. You don't clearly see any clear pattern of play ukuthi yini abazamgenza. And also we talked about a vision before, and we're still going back to a vision. Chiefs kwesinye isikhathi if uhlante moved ahead, or if Umodi moved ahead, akekho bona ukuthi I must pass that guy, he's free. They have to move the ball through the middle lize liyofika ngale ngezansi, by which time Umodi is already marked. So they have to bring the ball back to the right again and try to put it back that side. Yet mabesafika, when they're warming up, they practice these switches, these diagonal balls, but they don't do the masebedlala. And I think that also comes down to confidence, because they are no longer confident with their abilities. And number 5, because we're talking about setup and movement, is that coach wetu delusional. Ne? He is like delusional in so many ways. One, he says that we played well. We did not play well. Like, what game was he watching? That's the first. Number 2, a lot of fans have been complaining about the weight of Nkosi Ngcobo, or how much weight he has gained. He says he's not fat, but we clearly see Nkosi Ngcobo which is overweight. And that's not to say he's now a bad player, but that gaining of weight is hindering his growth. He's such a good player. Like, I rate Mshini so highly. Like, I rate Mshini, guys. Lwamchita mnandi. Nkosi Ngcobo is so good, but his body, he does not take care of it. And if the coach is thinking his body, the way he looks right now, is okay, why would Ngcobo then say, let me change my body, I'm not looking good enough? Because the coach thinks everything is okay. You look at Tutul, he's not in a good shape. Another very good player, but Mzimba, awuvumelani nale position ayidlalayo. But if our coach is thinking they're in a good enough shape or it doesn't want to upset them, then the truth will not be told to these players and they're going to continue just misbehaving or in a way not taking care of their bodies, and because of that they are always going to be limited in what they can achieve. And it's going to go to Saturday thinking a pirate is Angomenezu 15 with that delusion. And I hope that as a dab, players can be motivated and they can just work hard and try to not make us a laughing stock emhlabeni, because losing to Pirates, I'm ready for it. I can accept it. I just don't want to be embarrassed. If Pirates beats Chiefs, it'd rather be a 1-0 scoreline, a long 1-0 that will be scored on the 15th minute, and then Stembi game yokuthi Chiefs izokora, rather than having a 3-0 scoreline. That would be too embarrassing. So I hope Kevin Johnson is not having that mentality as Angoma once again, because we don't need none of that. But what did you think of the game? Do let me know down on the comment section below. If you've watched the video to this far, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember, equals Alpelumoy.